Hi, everyone. So today, much earlier today, Dr. Omar Fish sent me a message in Go Global, and this is what it said. Christopher, what advice can you share on living in the present? And I've sat with that most of the day. I didn't feel urged to respond in the moment, but now I feel like I really honour that. And because it's such a what it does is that sort of question really pushes you up against what's real. It really, I can either give a theoretical answer or a bunch of techniques from the ancient past that have been developed, breath techniques, exercise, Tai Chi, New Age, alternative things, being present, Buddhist, going into battle, that'll keep you in the present. There's driving fast cars, so much advice on what works in certain situations and everything. But I want to go to the essence of the question. Christopher, what advice can you give on living in the present? So first thing, this goes back 10,000 years now, and it'll apply in the future. Living in the present. Well, first thing is to be living. If you're not living, you're outside time and space, and past, present, and future are nowhere near as relevant as they are now. If you're into the quantum thing, you'd say they're all happening simultaneously. Metaphysics says similar sorts of things. And that's just fodder for overthinking everything, which everybody these days does, including myself. So get back to living. How do you define your living? Well, there are two parts to it. You're living when you're in the womb. There's a 9-month period where you're living. If you're not living, you're the pregnancy terminates, or it's a stillbirth. And why is it still? Because there's no heartbeat. That's what defines you. Your heartbeat keeps the blood circulating, and it allows the blood from your mother to come in and feed your blood, and your blood's blue, and but the heartbeat says you're alive, and if there's no heartbeat in the womb, the baby is dead. Now, when you're born, the heartbeat is still very, very relevant. But you've got to live on your own terms, not live as part of the mother. And so what defines you as living is that you're breathing. That's the first thing they say at birth, is he or she breathing? And I've been there where my mother passed away, very, very, very close, this close to my mother. And I watched her take not just a few, but an hour's worth of last breaths, including 3 stops until she really let go. So I'm not just talking theoretically. I knew she was dead when she stopped breathing and her presence left. There was no heartbeat, no breath, and who she was, they call it her presence. You could feel it, it was gone. So how do you live in the present? Well, physically, and I'm going to come back to why this is important in a moment. Physically, if your heart's beating and you're breathing. And once you're outside the womb, you're breathing. Just took a breath then. I'm still here, right here. So a lot of techniques people have developed over thousands of years focus on your breath, or be in your heart. And the physical dimension of that is be aware of your heartbeat. Doctors often teach it. So anything that helps you, if you want, what advice would you give for living in the present? Well, first check that you're living, breathing, and you've got a pulse. And then you're present. So how do we disconnect from the present? And a major part of that is we've got a brain and a mind, and they're not the same thing. This is, you need to get very, very clear on this. Your brain lives in your body. It's very pragmatic, practical, substantial, and it functions in the body, in time and in space. So when you're not in time, space, your brain is either helping your body stay alive while you're off in your imagination or dreaming or in the past or the future. It's keeping you functioning, the part of you that is in time, space, or you're dead. You know, when they say that he's brain dead, you're no longer able to function in time, space. And the mind operates and it functions outside of time and space. Which means it not only can travel back into the past and travel back into the future, or travel into the future, it can also travel outside time and space. Now, why would it do that? Well, there are some really simple things it can do that the brain cannot do. You know, your mind can appreciate beauty and ecstasy. Your brain doesn't. Now, that's hard for us to separate because we don't perceive our mind and our brain as being connected, but functioning really differently. No, when I get excited, my brain, you know, it gets flooded with serotonin, which is good for the brain and good for the body. It gets flooded with dopamine, which to a certain degree is good for the brain and good for the body. Not too much, but, you know, it's great. That happens with animals and everything, but the mind outside of time and space can appreciate the beauty of life, the beauty of living, and the beauty of ecstasy. And it can see the humor, it can sense the humor in life. And it lights up our creativity and our imagination. And that gives us choice. Choice is something we do with our mind. And then it lights up the love in us. It gives us a sense of enchantment and mystery. And it enables us to appreciate things that are transcendent, beyond time and space, or beyond our previous experience. So there's our mind doing all these things, which don't require us to be in the physical present. We can do that in dreams, but if we're going to do that in a healthy way, it really helps our brain if our mind and brain are in sync, working together. For instance, the most practical thing the mind does is make choices. The most practical thing the brain does is make decisions. And the two things are linked. But if you make a choice, your brain will figure out that's a very imaginative, creative, extraordinary choice. But right now, at this point in time, that's a bad decision for the body. I'm going to jump off this cliff and fly. And I believe I can do that. And the brain's going, See, the mind's job is to give choices that the brain goes, now that's a smart idea. Let's build an aeroplane, right? Let's see, we'll need wings. It's funny, most aeroplanes of some level have wings. Or rockets are guided. And they certainly all have a nose to seek the direction. So our mind can produce so many choices, and our brain can figure out how to make that work in a very practical way in the physical world, all which is very useful. Our mind comes up with beliefs. Our brain tells us, yeah, but is that a good attitude? You know, I believe people who live in so-and-so are deplorable. Well, is that a good attitude? And your brain will go, I believe every human being has potential. Wow, that means you have potential. Wow. Does that give you a good attitude? Certainly worth entertaining, goes the brain. Now, how does that actually apply in my life? And then you can start investigating. Because the brain enables you to make your own way in the world, free of your ego running your life because you gave your power away to it. The brain can show you how to operate in a way, how to make decisions in a way where the ego just assists rather than you try and get it to figure things out, and it takes over and gets overwhelmed and becomes really damaging. And your mind enables you to connect with your higher self. And that means the choices you make are smart choices, wise choices, choices that enable you to be born again in a new, fresh way, time and time again in your life. But it's got to go, ego, back in your place. Right? And who's going to run all this? Now, you've got three selves that are involved with this. You've got yourself, which is who you think and feel you are now within time and space. So that's you. Omar, it's like who you think and feel you are now in this body. That's yourself. What you feel and what you think about yourself, that's yourself. And then there's a higher self who you always have and will be, but that exists beyond time and space. And there's this other self that negotiates the difference between, it sort of forms the bridge, is the best way of putting it, between the two. And all three of them collaborate. And that's called your true self, is who you really are now. Not who you think and feel you are, not who you've always been, but who you really are now, operating in time and space, using your brain to help you, and yet still existing whole chunks of you outside of time and space, which can be really helpful. If both of them go together and go, how can we have a great life now? Now, I gave you that background. You know, Aziza said it once, if you give people enough left brain information, their brain will either get overwhelmed, their left brain will get overwhelmed, or it'll go, oh, okay, fair enough. And then your heart and your mind will open up. Because living in the present, outside time and space, there actually is nothing else but presence. But within time and space, we have our past, our future, and our ego, which isn't trying to run things, but we've spent so much time giving it the power to run things just because it's easier. It's like, I've got a personal assistant. I've got all these assistants out there running my life or my business and stuff like that. So I don't have to, you know, the one thing you do have to know is that they know what they're doing and you can trust them. Then it'll work. But our ego is just like, yeah, give me, and then you give it to it and it doesn't know what it's doing. It gets excited, it gets pumped up, and then it gets overwhelmed. So it starts to cover its ass, as they say. And you see that in the most negative behavior in a self-destructive way, and also the most negative behavior in I'm going to destroy others way. And that's rampant in the world at the moment because we can't afford to let our ego run the show. And the one place that the ego is most afraid of is being in the present, because that's where life, both beyond time and space and in this time and space, is focused, concentrated, and most intense, most powerful. So, first tip from what I've said, you know, your body is a great asset for being in the present. Your breath, your heartbeat, being in touch with your body, exercising, you know. Now there's being in the present because you've got so much adrenaline going on that, you know, nothing else matters, which is what people who surf big waves, slide down the sides of mountains, do really dangerous stuff, they live for, that moment when they're just there. But that's a lot of work for a small result, but it's great because it feels timeless, which means you get in contact, your body calms down and is present enough that you can feel beyond time space. But what about if you had that experience of being alive in the moment, in your physical body, and really present, as well as connected to beyond time space? That you had the best, literally the best of both worlds. What would that truly be like? Well, it's beautiful, but it's also very peaceful. And it feels incredibly normal. And there is definitely bliss in that, but it's not bliss, you know. drug-induced, dopamine-induced. I survived that 90-foot wave. Bless. Wow, we had a good day, and we all kept up. I know a lot of big wave surfers. We all got in and nobody got really hurt. And, we caught some great waves, and it was like, wow, that was a great day. Well, it still is a great day. People in sport, certain sports, when they become too old to really excel at the top level at that sport, there are certain sports where people get quite suicidal. So what about being in the present consistently on an ongoing basis, whether you're going through a high or a low or somewhere in between? So again, one, you want to be in the present, and your breath and your heartbeat are good places to start. And meditation, I've meditated for 47 years, for several hours a day, pretty much every day. I could probably count in 47 years, 2 weeks to a month, flying in aeroplanes. I didn't get the chance to do it formally. But there's also informal meditation, because when it's really simple, you can do it most anywhere, whenever you've got the desire to do it. So practice, find a way that brings you into the present, but does it more consistently, easily. It doesn't take a massive boost. And I find that even the best big wave riders have developed that. The ones that don't get, say, suicidal after it goes on in any particular sport, they've discovered a sort of beauty, like they'll find it in their children and in their family, and then in gardening, and then being present isn't this mountain you conquer. It's this place you discover within you. And if your mind's full of thoughts that you're no good, nobody loves you, blah, 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 all the negative thinking and stuff like that, that can drag you away from even recognizing that's there. But that's not it. And if you sit there in formal meditation and do this, that isn't it. I've literally sometimes lay down, sometimes sat in formal meditation for 47 years. And I can tell you, that's not it. That's just doing something that'll help you access it. But the other things, you need a way to go inside. You also need support from people who legitimately do that and are constantly learning from that state, not just giving lectures about it, not just talking about it. They're there. They do it for themselves naturally, or in a designed way, consistently, because they love it. And that's the other key. Babies are born, and you see this, because they love to be alive. And if you can love being aware in the moment, being present. Now, that's a challenge, because sometimes we're in pain, sometimes we have doubt, sometimes we're bombarded with people who have agendas or particular points of view, or want to make us negative, fearful, trying to scare us, trying to hurt us. All these things happen. Or we get sick. but it's a commitment. And this is why most practices start with something to do with going within, connecting to your heart, and you have no idea what that really means until you experience it. So just like you don't know what peace is until you actually experience it. And it's within us. And because it's within us, our mind, by tapping into something greater than ourselves, going outside time and space, can experience that ecstatic, the beauty and the ecstasy, the first thing. It's like, wow. There's this sense of wow in the mind. But we're also living in a body. So we're doing it really in a sophisticated, really challenging way. So how do you find it in the present? And so they often start with breathe, not because breathing is the key to being present, because breathing happens in the present, in our heartbeat. But you can breathe all you like, and you can take your pulse or listen to your heart or open up your heart, whatever that means. And there's many practices of focusing your mind so it doesn't get distracted either by negative ego or other people, so that you're there, because the experience of the present is the most powerful, not the past, not the future, although the future is crucial and so is the past to the present, but the future is the most crucial. But there's this whole thing. And I'll read you a quote. In fact, maybe I can even screen share it from one of my teachers. Now, I'm going to have to get it up first. And no, that's not a male joke. It's, no, I can't do that, but I can do this. Great. I have to get rid of that, and I have to get rid of that. And then I can, where are you? There you go. Now I can screen share it. I want to read this to you. And this is why people shy away. This is why even your mind, your ego, this is why it doesn't necessarily feel safe to be in the present. This is why, we're antsy about it. Okay. This is a quote from one of my great teachers, Lazarus. Said, don't live in the past, don't live in the future. And this is for this week, by the way. Live in that somewhere between the future and the past. Live in that energy between that is so immensely powerful. That's why we shy away from the present. Because when we're there, we know our power. And because of our definitions of power, we think that that's incredibly overwhelming. Until you really know power, and that's something I'm going to be talking about in 2 weeks or so. Power is so, how can I put it? It's got will, but it has love. It's so free, but it's responsible. And it's so willing to be vulnerable. And so to live in the present, tip number whatever on the tips I'm giving, is learn to be vulnerable, not weak, not open, not some sort of nice goody-goody type of person, but vulnerable to your weaknesses and your strengths, vulnerable to the moment, to life. When you're feeling pain, to whatever degree you can do that without it, there comes a point where if you've got access to painkillers, it's a good move. But feel the pain, feel the pleasure, feel the beauty, feel the joy, but then feel deeper. Because the feeling allows your body to come into the present. And then your body being in the present means it can, and your brain being in the present means it can connect not only with yourself, but your true self, which also has access to your mind outside time and space. And that mind and your higher self can bring you so many solutions, so many choices, to put it in the simplest words, little, choices. And your body can go, you could shoot yourself. No, that's not a good move. I mean, it's painful, but I feel lonely, but I don't think that's a smart decision. Okay, come up with something better. Okay, well, you could and because the mind sparks creativity and imagination. It lights the fire of love. That's what choices do. When you spark creativity and imagination, choices start just flooding. And then what takes those choices is you move towards the love. And then all the other good stuff the mind does is available. But if you're present, if your brain and your body, you're breathing and you're experiencing the moment to the best of your ability without over-analysing it, which is tough to do because our brain likes to analyse things. There's a whole chunk of us that does. And that has its purpose. And then the ego gets in and then encourages you to totally overdo it because it'll distract you from the present. And then it's not under so much pressure to enjoy life, which would shoot down all its opinions about you don't matter or you're the greatest thing in the whole world. Right? So this, I don't know whether this, if you're looking for tips and tricks, I'm not the person. But if you're looking for something that'll just open up a whole new landscape, where in the present, you're so in touch with that peaceful power, that power filled with joy that isn't over-exuberant, and pleasure that isn't like, wow, and beauty that isn't like, but it's like, makes you breathe. It slows your heart down, but it makes it beat more strongly. Where you light up being alive as a human being, physically. I can see it in my face. That's why I love doing these things. It just lights me up physically. But at the same time, you feel that presence and you're touched by the consciousness that lies beyond time and space, as well as your body's consciousness. And you feel like you're who you really are. And you're in your power. You're being your true self. You're not yourself. You're not your higher self. You're Christopher Power, Omar Fish, or your true name. You're that being. And you're being a being in the present. And what helped me most was, one, those techniques, and there's many of them around, but find out, it doesn't matter how many techniques there is, which is the one that works for you, which is the one that genuinely gives you the experience of peace within inside yourself. And 2, have people who know that speak to you, because them speaking to you can help you be there, particularly when they're speaking from that place. They don't hype you up, they're just helping you touch in. And the 3rd trick, be of service to the world. Think of something greater than yourself. And guess what? You'll need to tap into your higher self to do that, because your ordinary self, it's like it's greater than yourself. But the beauty about that is your true self gets to thrive and flourish and turn up, because, hey, myself's doing this stuff, I'm helping people, but it's for something greater than just me. And so being of service is just, and it's not being a servant. It's bringing the very best of who you are to the table in a way that benefits you and others simultaneously. It brings out the best of you, and everybody else gets to experience that, and it brings out the best in them. That'll get you present, being of service, listening to someone who is present, and bringing yourself into the presence gently with the simplest techniques that enable you to sit in that immensely powerful but vulnerable and gentle energy that's within that. You know, we seem to be so committed to leaving, and that's fine. You know, you can go out the door and go shopping, but it's a great idea to come home to it on a regular basis. I've been away from my wife for 2.25 years now, maybe 2.25. Yeah, 2.25. And remembering the love that we have, and connecting, because of technology, God bless it, connecting with her several times a day and serving her and feeling the love that we share together. Plus doing my meditation and remembering the love when I'm walking down the street. And when I get a bit stressed out, saying, thank you, body, for letting me know I'm disconnected. Or if I get too intellectual, for me, the big thing is grounded in something that's very useful to me, or to me and others in the physical world. And all of those build up a life where you're not present every moment because you're trying to be a perfect enlightened being. Like outside time and space, pretty much you are. But you're experiencing enough of that to bring out the best of you on a daily basis. And there definitely comes a point where trying to control it with thought and your mind, you go past that. It's like learning a skill in a sport or doing a presentation. There's a point where you need to have certain skills and you need to organize your life in a certain way. And, you know, you just like children, they practice discipline, walking, stuff and that. And then there's a time where you can, in a sense, throw away that because you know how to do it. And you learn to dance. You learn to flow. You learn to appreciate and enjoy. You see the beauty in it. There's love and creativity and imagination. Everything that the part of you that lives beyond time and space came here to experience. And you're alive with it. And it's so beautiful. So, you know, for the tips and tricks part, just come back to your heartbeat, your breath, that it's not a competition. It's something you have. You are present. We just wander. And there's parts of us that tend to wander more, right? When we're young, our hormones, when we get older, our intellect and our brain and our opinions and, But even those, when we're young and hot and horny and everything that we're doing, when you're at peace, when you're present, even that is way, way better. Because you get to enjoy it, you see the beauty of it, you learn from it, and you get support from your grandparents, from your parents, from your friends, if they're real friends. And it's all those things I've talked about, condensing into living a life that you were truly born to live. And the striving, I can't tell you how many of those 47 years I was striving to meditate. And these days I've learned to enjoy, to relax into, to feel, to appreciate, to allow, all those words we hear about. But you actually apply that by letting go. And you fall into the presence. And it's so powerful that it enriches you, it fills you, it resets you. So when you go out during the day and inevitably get distracted, you've got that joy and love to back you up with you in your cells, in your nervous system. And then when it gets too much, or way before it gets too much, when you've just finished what you're doing, come back and reset. And if you make that not an intellectual mountain climbing achievement, but something that matters to you in your life, so you put time and energy into it, then being present becomes your default state. And you start coming back to it, or it's easy to get back to it when you need it. And you also do whatever you've learned works for you to get back there. But not from a point of controlling it, being on top of it, but letting it in like breathing and allowing your life, like your heart, to beat rich and full and just enjoy. So I hope you really enjoy that. And thank you for asking the question. And I'll share it with the group. And if anybody gets this far into it, I hope you've had a wonderful experience, because I have. And I appreciate your question. You're a man with a good heart. Love you, man. Take care.